Off top, high heels were invented in the 10th century for cavalrymen to wear to keep the stirrups on when they're riding their horses in battle. Play the music.
This is the Domonique Foxworth Show.
Throw your hands up. Welcome to the Domonique Foxworth Show presented by Allstate. We got a new guest, or a return of an old guest.
Ooh.
Sport coat Bill is here because he hasn't been wearing a coat lately, so he is back. It's Bill Barnwell as usual, but it's Bill Barnwell in a suit jacket, which means he means business today.
It's a formal Domonique Foxworth Show podcast today.
William.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
And the other voice you hear is by the great Charlie Kravitz, known as the Vanilla Snack. Mm-hmm. We're all here together, saddened by Charlie's beloved Commanders somehow reverting back to the old way that they're used to losing, but we'll get to that at some point.
Yeah, you just wanted to drop that in. You brought in the high heels and the off top, so I was trying to think of a Bryce Young joke, and I was like, well, and then you just snuck that in in my face.
I just wanted to let people understand why your energy may not be as high as it used to, because you're now a fan with expectations that was let down by a stupid play.
You keep trying to make this happen.
I'm
a realist.
No, you're not, Charlie. No fan is a realist.
You texted me during the game, you'll learn soon enough to have faith in these moments. And I said, nope.
That's because you're trying to guard yourself against, and what I want is you to stop pretending. Just go ahead and lean in. I know how you feel.
Yeah.
I saw how you reacted to that Hail Mary.
You're
sick. In love. Full bloom love.
Yeah.
I knew you were going to do that.
Full bloom love.
We spend too much time together.
Computer guys. Anyway, we're going to talk about other rookie quarterbacks first. We will get to Jaden Daniels and Russell Wilson. There's certainly was an interesting game, but we should start with the topic. We're recording this on Sunday night. When you're listening to this, we're going to get a nuanced conversation about Drake May and Caleb Williams before you turn on Get Up and First Take, and you get to hear about the unmitigated gall of Shane Waldron and the Bears organization ruining Caleb Williams. But today we had Caleb Williams of the Bears, who was supposed to be in the best situation ever for a rookie quarterback coming into a first overall pick quarterback coming into the season against Drake May, who was considered to be in an all-time terrible situation. We're looking at his number one receiver being Pop Douglas or Keyshawn Butte. And what happened was Caleb Williams took 9 sacks and looked really bad. And we've done some tape breakdowns on our show about how Caleb's playing better than the numbers. But today it certainly didn't feel like it, because this is a game that the Bears had to win with their remaining schedule. And I think it's fair to be disappointed by Caleb's play. But I am going to ask the question, because it's not about blaming Caleb Williams. It's not about writing him off. We still believe in the talent. But there are repercussions to treating your rookie quarterback the way that they have treated the rookie quarterback. And so I have to ask, are the Bears ruining Caleb Williams?
It's hard to have an answer to this question that's not yes, because what we're watching, it's either that or Caleb Williams is not as good as we thought. And Caleb Williams is really bad. And I have a hard time going with that one because, like I mentioned, we've done the breakdowns on the show before where there are glimpses of the magical Caleb stuff. I think the best assessment that I've been able to come to from watching Caleb and watching today's game is that it just so happens that his weaknesses match perfectly, or the opposite of perfectly, with the weaknesses of this team. Because when we came into the draft, we were saying the one thing about Caleb Williams that we're concerned about is, can he work within structure? We're not worried about him making magical plays. We're worried about him thinking that the only way he can play is by scrambling and making stuff happen. And in this situation, when they ask him to play in structure, and this is where the Bears ruining him comes into play. When they ask him to play in structure, so often the interior of that offensive line fails, or this group of great receivers that we thought were so great, they really ain't never open. It's hard to find situations where there's a clear, obvious play that's designed and the route is run so perfectly that the choice is obvious. They drop passes today. And so it's not to defend Caleb. He's bad too.
Right.
But it just so happens that the way that he is bad really makes it hard for him to prevail in this situation.
I think we're maybe setting the bar a little too recently, because to me, this isn't the Bears' fault, obviously, but this looks very similar to what we saw from him last year at USC, where he did not have confidence in his offensive line, did not have confidence in his receivers. And so I think a lot of the core concepts they would have liked to run, he wasn't trusting. I felt like a lot of the sort of answers you would hope a quarterback would have and have faith in. He did not believe, and I don't blame him for doing so, given what I've seen of USC tape from last year. And so you have a guy who's sort of just aimlessly scrambling, waiting for something to happen, waiting for something perfect to pop up, and trusting his ability for that to happen. And in the NFL, that is a very dangerous game to play. You can get away with it at the college level. You very often cannot at the pro level. And I think you contrast him, to Jaden Daniels, who came into the NFL with the reputation as being a guy who was going to take too many hits, who was going to not be thoughtful with the football at times. And he has been so good and so smart and so reliable at trusting what the look is going to be, going through his progressions quickly, getting the ball out quickly, making decisive choices with the football, and then making accurate passes as a result, because he's set to make those throws. And with Caleb Williams, he's never really set. He's never really in a position where he feels like he can trust the core concepts the Bears are running. And you end up with this offense where he's either taking sacks or running for his life, and the receivers aren't trusting that they're going to be, that the timing's going to be right on their routes. Like, it feels like nothing in this offense works. And so it just sort of becomes this big old, like, moldy mess of bad football.
Yeah. Watching the sacks from today, what was it? 9 of them?
9 of them.
It's not so many sacks, and I think a lot of people will say that sacks is a quarterback stat. Like, you have to get rid of the ball. Like, the quarterbacks feel the sacks coming or see the sacks coming, and they have to make decisions and be prepared. Pressure is not necessarily on them. But when you watch these games, man, or watch these sacks from today, they are blowing by the offensive linemen.
Yes.
It's like very hard to have time to make a clear decision. And some of them, yes, Caleb is holding onto the ball. And the tough thing is, on those ones where he's holding onto the ball, I'm looking at the routes when he has to get rid of it, and I don't see a clear decision where he should throw it. And I guess you could trust your guy and throw it over there and just give him a shot, like we see some of the more veteran quarterbacks do. Like, I don't want to use Mahomes and Kelsey as an example, but like, you see guys who do that. They throw it into coverage, but they throw it into a spot where the receiver is.
Like Sam Darnold and Justin Jefferson.
Yeah, a little different than Sam Darnold and Justin Jefferson. But there is a way to get rid of the ball in a situation when your guys are in tight coverage and you're under pressure. That's like advanced stuff that he hasn't gotten to yet because he's still running for his life.
Well, ideally, you want to have an offense where your stuff is synced to the quarterback's footwork, right? Like, when the quarterback gets to the end of his drop on a 3-step drop, 5-step drop, 7-step drop, 1-step, whatever you want to do with your quarterback, you want the receiver to be coming out of his break at that time. You want the read to be coming clear at that time. You want to make it so that the quarterback and everything is in rhythm, so he knows when to get rid of the football. And that becomes it becomes what's the opposite of a self-fulfilling prophecy? Is it a self-fulfilling prophecy? I don't really understand what a self-fulfilling prophecy is, but it feels like that. Like, you develop good habits, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And so you get into rhythm, you start making the decision naturally. That's not the case with this Bears offense. There is not that situation where it feels like, you said, Caleb gets to the point where you expect him to throw and the receivers are coming open. They're coming out of their breaks. The progression's, at the point where you can go from 1 to 2 or 2 to 3. Like, it feels like everything is disjointed. Everything's on different timings. And then when you have a lack of talent on the offensive line, or you have injuries on the offensive line, it's only going to exacerbate that.
I know we want to compare Drake May and Jaden Daniels because they played each other today, but Bill made the Drake May and Caleb because they played each other today, but Bill made the Jaden Daniels comparison. And I noticed today in that specific game, you saw Cliff Kingsbury modify the game plan through the course of the game. Where it's like, oh, we can't block those guys. And he went within the first quarter to a quick game. And it's just like, when you watch the same thing with Caleb, it doesn't seem like those modifications are working. And I'll put on top of it, it's possible that we were wrong. Like, when we were always saying how great this situation was, like, Keenan Allen doesn't look like the Keenan Allen we expect. And I mean, I don't want to get on my Maryland guy, but he also is not creating the separation that I want. And Dunze has balls bouncing off his face mask in this game. It's like, maybe these guys aren't as good as we thought they were.
Definitely. And I think that, like, there are multiple things that can be true of situations. Like, I think a lot of the people who are not as deep into the tape grinding didn't know that the Texans situation was good last year, because they didn't realize how good Nico Collins and Tank Dell were, and people thought that Stroud was in a terrible situation. Was not a terrible situation. The thing about the Caleb stuff, and you've brought up the Daniels comparison, where the May comparison I think is interesting, is we watched the first Caleb game together, me and Domonique, and you're like, I'm surprised his athleticism doesn't pop more. And Drake May's athleticism pops instantly. And that's surprising because I thought that some of the play extension and like freak athlete stuff, like he was just going to be able to do Caleb Williams things and make crazy plays happen. And I know that happened from time to time in the Washington game.
Right.
But that situation is not as good as we thought it was. It is still better than the situation in Washington or New England on paper. And if you want to say that Shane Waldron is just the ultimate turd in the punch bowl and it's a worse situation because of that, I can certainly accept that. And that does not seem like it's a great pairing. But on paper, we are seeing rookie quarterbacks succeed with moves and rosters around them that we lambasted coming into the season.
Yeah. And, Brandon Schooler, I thought, had a really good point today. By the way, Brandon Schooler, the Patriots expert special teams coverage guy, his first sack at any level playing football today in the NFL, which is incredible to have happen. Yeah. He was spying on Williams in one of the plays, and he said, Williams has 34 plays this year, or 34 or 38 plays already in half a season of football where he's held the ball for 6 seconds. And that just doesn't happen. Like, you don't do, like, maybe like peak Russell Wilson, like his first couple of years might have done that, where he was just scrambling forever. Maybe Mahomes has that, but obviously the upside of those guys, the deep passes they were hitting, the things they weren't taking as many sacks, they were getting rid of the football. Caleb doesn't do that right now, and he may never do that. And if he doesn't do that, I'm really concerned, because like right now, I think it's fair to say, and I'm going to make the comparison, you would comfortably take Jaden Daniels over Caleb Williams if you were redrafting in the draft. But you could even make the case you would consider taking Drake May over him. I don't think that Drake May is a great quarterback at this point, but at least it feels like he is getting more out of his talent than Caleb Williams is right now.
Yeah, I think to the point that Charlie was making, it kind of goes back to the first point that I made, is like, it feels like part of it is that maybe the situation on paper in Chicago is better, but it's worse for Caleb Williams specifically. And I think that part of it is about the point that you made about the athleticism popping, is if you have a bad offensive line and a good defense, which I would say both of these teams have, the Patriots and the Bears, being able to use your legs and your athleticism helps a great deal. So
that's one of the weird things about Caleb too, is like in college, he was sort of the ultimate eye test guy.
Right.
You watch it, like, that guy.
you turn into John
Gruden. I make me feeling nicey. Caleb Williams tape at Oklahoma when he stripped his own running back was making me feel nicey. But you don't see that. Like, he does not. He's the eye test guy that you saw at USC, where it's like, throw all the stats out of there. This guy can make magic. All the Mahomes comparisons that we have not seen so far. I don't know. It's where he would get redrafted it's so hard to say now, because none of us want to give up on his talent. But I want to give some examples of first overall picks who have struggled a ton in their rookie season. And there can be a lot of paths. Like, we thought that Jared Goff was going to be out of the NFL. He was considered one of the worst rookie quarterbacks we'd ever seen. So much changed post Jeff Fisher, and he became someone who was really supported by a system, and he can be really excellent with good players around him. There's a chance that Caleb Williams follows that path. Not that he's going to need plays in his ears to develop as a quarterback the way that Jared Goff did, but someone who is more situationally dependent. There's also someone like Matt Stafford, who had 13 touchdowns and 20 interceptions as a rookie. That situation, I think, is uniquely bad. He was coming off the 0-16 season. His team was terrible. But then there's also, and then this is where it goes up a tier. Peyton Manning was just like, take as many risks as possible, throw 28 interceptions as a rookie. And by his second year, we were looking at him and Kurt Warner as the two best quarterbacks in the NFL. Conversely, there are a ton of quarterbacks who don't flash at all as rookies and never figure it out. So like, there's just such a wide range of outcomes with Caleb right now that it's genuinely confusing to where to place him moving forward.
Nobody is of the teams that have spent a lot of time playing their rookie quarterbacks. Nobody would want to trade situations with the Bears. Like, I think that I'm going through my head. I think the Patriots are happier with Drake May.
Oh, yeah. I think,
right.
Yeah.
Right. No, Patriots are happier, and obviously the Washington is happier. And I think that's the part that's hard to reconcile, is all the flashes that we all are talking about and we all see. No one's like, yeah, I want that guy. And that's a bad situation to be in.
I mean, the Broncos one's where it gets interesting.
Yeah, the Broncos is the one where I think it gets interesting. We had Elle Duncan on. She wanted to trade. She
paused.
She did pause, but
she wasn't like,
She wanted to move on from Bo Nix, which is reasonable.
Bo Nix was good today.
I think Bo Nix has been pretty good for a rookie quarterback.
He has been.
He was terrible against the Ravens, but most of the game against the Ravens. He was fine against the Chiefs today. Was this the day where a Panthers fan opened up Twitter, started typing, actually, the trade was good for the Panthers? Erased it because it's still too early. But was this the first day that Panthers fan thought, actually, this might work out for us?
I think it was last week when DJ Moore walked off the field while Caleb Williams was scrambling and quit on the organization. I think at that point, some Panthers fan was like, my God, we won the trade. we fleeced him. If only we had taken Stroud.
Oh, man, I refuse to spend any time talking about the Panthers-Giants game. So,
do you think the Panthers do win the trade if they just take Stroud with the first pick?
Yeah. I mean, if you get the quarterback, you win. No matter what you traded, when you traded, you get a quarterback, you win. I mean, I guess that's assuming that Stroud would have worked out in Carolina. But if they get the Stroud that we saw last year, that's the thing. If they get a good Stroud, then the answer is yes. But if they don't,
I think he would have been good.
I'm not prepared to give up on Caleb Williams yet. There are so many things I'm willing to believe that if they change, he will be better before I'm willing to make like a dramatic, distinctive change on how I feel about Caleb Williams. I still think the talent is there. Like you guys have said, there's moments you see on tape. There's moments you see on the dots where he's making good decisions. He obviously has arm talent, but I think the bar is set probably a little unfairly because we've the last 2 years had quarterbacks who have stepped in and just instantly looked like superstars.
I think we have Trevor Lawrence scar tissue also, where people were so afraid to be like, this guy might not be who we thought. This guy might not be Joe Montana. Right. And so, I think that cuts both ways. People don't want to be wrong about their evaluation of Caleb Williams, and the talent was so apparent that I think he's going to have a longer leash till we think he's a bust. But it's also like we are a little bit gun shy of generational quarterback prospect after Trevor Lawrence.
Go back a little further. Joe Burrow wasn't great as a rookie either, and year 2 of the Bengals to a Super Bowl after tearing his ACL. So, there are enough cases like a Jared Goff, like a Joe Burrow, that I am very willing to be patient. But I guess I should ask you guys, like, do you think when people are going to be listening to this show, are the Bears still going to have the same people running the offense that were running the offense against the Patriots on Sunday?
That's a good question.
Firing Shane Waldron. Now you're talking my language. I love a good firing.
I mean, so it's a harder thing to say. I guess you're not asking should they, you're asking will they. I think will they? Yeah, I think they're going to have to do something real soon, this week or next week. If things don't get better, they're going to have to change something somewhere along this line to give the team some confidence and to give the fans some blood and maybe even protect Eberflus's job for the rest of the season.
Protect Caleb too. Yeah,
and protect Caleb. But I think the only way to protect Caleb is to sit him down. Like unless you are going to
blame.
Oh, yeah, from blame. And then it opens him up to it if it continues to get worse. But I think the thing is, midway through the season, what really are you going to do? Like, you might change a person who runs it, but, I mean, I guess you can change the play calling, but you can't overhaul the entire scheme if the scheme is a problem. If the scheme requires anyone or any guard or center to block someone, then if that's your scheme, then this ain't your team. Like, it's going to be tough. If you got a scheme where guards and centers are not necessary, then come on to Chicago. We got the roster for you.
We're just pulling them every single stop. They're just moving out of the way. It's all eye candy. Remember that sneak a couple of weeks ago? The where both guards pulled out and the quarterback just ran straight forward. We're running that sneak every single play with Caleb Williams.
It's how quickly can they get Mike McDaniel there this offseason? How can we build a scheme that doesn't need an offensive line? I do. Before we move on, do we think they're going to have Lincoln Riley as their head coach next year?
Oh.
Do you think Lincoln Riley is going to he's going to be the head coach? You don't think he's going to be the offensive coordinator?
Oh, he'd be the head coach.
The actual
he's going to be paid he has like $100 million contract at USC. He's definitely going to be a head coach if he leaves.
Yeah, that doesn't seem like a smart choice. It doesn't seem like that would help. I mean, maybe that's just like you think it's going to work because they used to work well together because that was super successful in USC. Like, it doesn't strike me as the right move, but whatever. Knock yourself out, Bears.
That is the old Cliff failing up plan.
Yes.
You had Patrick Mahomes and your team wasn't very good. What if you were a head coach? Maybe that is what you need to do.
Don't besmirch
people
my
find
man,
their
Cliff.
level eventually.
Yeah, Cliff found his level.
He's been very good. He found his level as an NFL offensive coordinator.
There was a moment today before they brought in the quick game for the Commanders, and I was like, oh no, it's November 10th. Cliff's run out of plays. And tradition is all this time himself.
He modified.
He modified it. And then I was like, oh, he has more. He's got more. New Cliff.
He's got more plays. I don't There's the thing is when we talk about staffs, we talk about just the guy who's in charge.
Yeah.
There's somebody on that staff who's like, hey, Cliff, we should probably go to quick game now. Cliff was like, oh, good idea. Let's go quick game.
I just think of like the coach in Waterboy when he doesn't have his notebook. And the other coach is like, this is Cliff Kingsbury without his notebook when we get to week 10.
I watched Waterboy this weekend.
Great movie.
My son wanted to see it. He had never seen Waterboy. He asked me to see it.
Declan must love Bobby Boucher.
He loved it. He loved that. Oh, man. He's laughing at all the jokes that are no longer allowed. And he was laughing hysterically at all those. And I'm like, oh, am I failing?
No.
Okay, good.
It's a little boy.
Yeah. Exactly. I exposed him to Waterboy.
It's good parenting.
Yeah, I told you we watched Friday. And next Friday. Friday after next. Next Friday is what we're going to watch.
Love it.
That's my favorite one.
Really? I think
The
the
third
original
one.
one's
I guess the original one's pretty funny, but third one is Cat Williams in the third.
Yeah, well, because the rest of them are all kind of the same. Also, just remade with better, just like all the different Hangover movies.
Yeah.
The same model. All right. Get your hands up. It's time for the check-in presented by Allstate. We are going to talk about the San Francisco 49ers in this check-in because Christian McCaffrey returned from double Achilles tendonitis. It was spreading. It was spreading in his legs.
Charlie, no. Trish McCaffrey said there's a lot of Instagram doctors out there. Don't be another Instagram doctor. It was totally fine that Christian McCaffrey had dual Achilles tendonitis and went to Germany to solve his problems. Nothing to be worried about at all.
Nothing to be worried about. Well, I think it assuaged some concerns maybe for the 49ers offense because despite the fact he had 13 carries for 39 yards, he was a safety valve in the passing game, 6 receptions for 68 yards in a 23-20 win where we saw some of the best football from Brock Purdy we've seen this season as the offense was unlocked. And begs the question, do the vibes for the 49ers, whose star receiver swiped their long snapper's throat today.
Yeah, I was gonna say, hold on.
Feel all good now that CMC is back.
You can't undercut us. You realize midway through the sentence.
No, this is written. This is written in the document.
Oh, okay. You already wrote this. Yeah. Hey, I was getting excited.
I ate my myself.
Charlie wrote that part in size 4 font. He wrote the Debo or wrote the non-Debo part in size 48 font.
I just saw Charlie throwing me an alley-oop, and then he pushes me out the way to go grab it out of the air and lay it up. Like, I was going to dunk it, Charlie, and you laid it up. No, the vibes are not better. Maybe because their star wide receiver was trying to choke their long snapper. The vibes are not great.
It's a long snapper.
I think it's encouraging to see him and what he does for the offense, but I will say one of the big issues with the 49ers offense was their effectiveness in the red zone. And Christian McCaffrey, we thought, and we've done breakdowns on here, how he will unlock their red zone offense. He hasn't done that yet. And I think that changes things. And we also can't talk about this game without mentioning how Baker held Joey Bosa with one arm. Nick Bosa with one arm. One of the Bosas with one arm and threw an incredible conversion. Anyway, Bill, what do you think?
About all that? That's a lot of stuff for me to talk about here. Okay, first and foremost, the vibes. Yes, vibes aren't great when your wide receiver is attacking multiple special teamers and then afterwards being like, it's okay, don't worry about it. This is a guy whose nickname is literally Debo after Debo from Friday. Like, it seems like it might be the wrong person to be getting into a fight with in the field, but this seems like a very easy problem. Like we talked about Caleb's problems and how you can't, replace the play call. You can't, totally change over the offense. You can get a new kicker real easy. You can get a new long snapper. It's not hard to get one of those guys. So I think those vibe problems are very easily fixed if you're the 49ers in the weeks to come. The red zone stuff, I feel like they're still trying to figure out what the offense looks like. I feel like because they've had so few of the playmakers on a weekly basis, it feels like they haven't had the ability to lock into what they want to do on offense, having all the pieces together, having the ability to call whatever they want. They had some near misses against the Bucs. I'm not that concerned about, kind of one bad red zone game with McCaffrey in the fold here. I think it's going to be fine in the big picture, but I do think the defense was a concern in this game. Like, yes, they were able to hold them off, but that final drive where the Niners could not stop committing penalties. Like they had, they gave the Bucs like 4 first downs in 5 plays on penalties. Like it was, I tweeted it would have resulted in a congressional investigation if this had happened to the Chiefs in a meaningful game. It was absolutely absurd. And so I just feel like we're looking at this team expecting them to dominate, and I don't know that they have that gear in them right now. I don't feel like McCaffrey was hoping that was going to be the thing that happened, where it took them from, okay, we are good most weeks, we're not great, not as great as we once were, but we're still pretty okay, to, oh, we can just blow up teams. They don't feel like they can blow up teams right now.
That was always the 49ers defense has always been like the kind of a second fiddle, I guess, to our love for their offense. But it's always like, since they've been good, this entire Shanahan run, the defense has been really great. In the last couple seasons, it has been like kind of shaky. And this season, it feels like it's on the wrong side of shaky, which if the offense isn't going to take some major step and be as great as it once was, then this team feels like, which, I mean, it's a conversation we've been having all year. It's like, is their window closed or is there barely open? But it feels like if their defense, and there's no reason, like there's hope for their offense. Like Christian's just coming back, figure out what they're going to do. Like, I don't know what the answer is to go back to a dominating defense, because they are one of these teams that was always led by their front and their linebacker. And the front isn't as good. Like Fred Warner is as good as he's ever been, but the front isn't as good as it was when they were dominating.
Bring back DeForest Buckner.
Oh my gosh. You and I were both wrong about what was it?
Javon Hargraves.
Yeah. We thought he was
hurt.
No, I just mean from the draft. And when he was healthy, he wasn't DeForest Buckner, which is a lot to ask.
True. They still haven't got Dre Greenlaw back. And it almost feels like that is the perennial thing for the Niners. Just wait till he comes back. Wait till that guy shows up.
That is a very 49ers thing to do.
Yeah, and that's fine. Like, I think that's a perfectly reasonable thing to hope for. But, like, not that the Chiefs are great, because I'm sure we'll talk about the Chiefs, and they're not a great football team either.
We'll get
there. But I just want to see this team blow people up. And I think my hope is Christian McCaffrey next week is better able to do that, and that the offense does look better. Because if they are clicking on all cylinders on offense, the defense frankly doesn't matter. Like, until we get to January, the defense will not matter for this team if the offense lives up to expectations. And I thought, actually, Brock Purdy played really well in this game, all things considered.
Well, they got the win, so that buys them a little bit more time, I think, to figure all these things out, and eventually, they're technically out of the playoffs right now, right? Like, I think their standings would put them outside of. Is that true? Yeah, I know they were going into this game, so I guess I'm not sure where they were.
The Cardinals also won,
so they might still be out. Anyway, sorry, drop that dead fish on your lap.
No, I'm just looking at the standings, doing some good podcasting.
I'm sorry.
Still out of the playoffs. You're right.
For Charlie's beloved Washington Commanders.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting division down the stretch.
Right.
So, all right, let's move on. The Vikings, they won today against the Mac Jones-led Jacksonville Jaguars. But this is a team that, when their defense started the season, we thought that the Vikings could be Super Bowl contenders. We had people talking, the Sampathizers, as they're known, as Mina Kimes calls them, giving MVP takes about Sam Darnold. Well, he's not very good. He had 3 interceptions today trying to force the ball to Justin Jefferson. It has looked bad for a few weeks. And the question I have to ask, Domonique Foxworth, are you ready to call the Vikings an unserious outfit after watching Sam Darnold implode over the last month?
I'm ready to call Sam Darnold an unserious outfit, personally. The defense is still very good. I would say this is what I'll say about the Vikings. I would like to respect them because they have been competitive in all their games and knocked off some really good teams up until this point. However, they're very dependent on some things that you cannot always depend on. So as good as the defense is, it's a lot of turnovers. And that could go away, which means the defense will regress, and you're not going to win 12-7 in the NFL very often. You won't be playing McCorkle every week, and you won't have these turnovers in your favor. And Sam Darnold can't just blindly throw to Justin Jefferson and it always work, especially if it's not going to work against the Jaguars. So, I think I'm hesitant to say they're an unserious outfit because I do think their defense is actually good, but their defense is not as good as the turnovers that they're creating make them look right now. And if those turnovers go away, which they could because that's how turnovers work, and then they're relying on Sam Darnold, that's when you're like, yeah, this outfit is getting real unserious.
Speaking of unserious outfits, Domonique Foxworth just writing off turnovers. They just come and go, whatever. You can't control them. They're just like wild kids. They show up, they leave. No, the Vikings are creating turnovers because they're really good at creating turnovers. I don't think that's a random thing. You're going to have games here and there where you don't force 3 takeaways, but we've seen this team force turnovers against just about everybody so far this year. I do think the offense is a concern, though, because they're not running the ball effectively, not consistently at least. And then you have a passing attack where I think Sam has not been as terrible as people are making him out to be over the last month. Like he was today. He was the week before this. He was pretty bad today, to be fair, against a bad Jags defense. But
I'm owed an apology
moving the ball
sympathizers for having to watch him today.
Call up Mina. Call up Orlovsky. You got the wrong person for the sympathizers. Like a couple weeks ago, the game last Sunday, Darnold was like 26 of 32 or like 24-20. Like he completed a ton of passes. Just a couple, of the passes he didn't complete, like 2 of them were interceptions. And I feel like I don't think he's that different from the guy earlier this year. I think earlier this year he was running real hot when it came to avoiding those turnovers. And he has not been running hot in recent weeks. I think he's been getting probably a little unlucky with some of these plays, but that's what he is. He is going to be a guy that runs a 3% interception rate over the course of the year. He's going to put the ball in danger. You have receivers who can win when he puts the ball in danger, as long as they can at least get vaguely near the football. But I do think if there's anything that really sank this team and really sank Sam Darnold's chances of being great, it was the Christian Darrisaw injury. And I find that so infuriating because it was such a useless play and a bad decision to even run the ball in that situation that led to the Darrisaw injury. And I think that is the thing for Sam, is that when things are perfect around him, we've seen over his career, he can be good. He can play really well. He can be well protected. He can be confident and make smart decisions with the football, at least most of the time. But once he starts feeling, that he has an unserious offensive line in front of him, that's when he starts struggling.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a lot of the middle of the pack quarterbacks. I think that's Baker Mayfield. It's like we get this better version of Baker Mayfield because that Bucs O-line is really good. So I think point to the Darrisaw injury is an important one. And I have to defend my honor as a defensive back. I do not think turnovers are lucky. I do think that you can force them. But if there are building blocks to build a team around, creating turnovers is not one of them. It's not one that you're every week creating turnovers is going to be there for you. When you play good teams and good quarterbacks and you put all your tricky on film, sooner or later, you're going to come across a game where you don't create interceptions and fumbles, and you'll get your beat if you can't score or stop them in a traditional way.
Well, this is interesting because they are leading the NFL in turnovers, and there could be a double regression. A regression on turnovers and a regression on Darnold with that Darrisaw. And they are barely in the playoffs right now. Barely. And just barely. And coming up, they have the Titans, Bears, Cardinals, Falcons, Bears, Seahawks, Packers, Lions. Those last 2 games.
So they're playing a team where we just fired their entire staff twice.
They're
playing
3
Tennessee, who were terrible.
Oh gosh.
But
I'm not. That did not do the thing you were hoping it was going to do to me, Charlie.
double regression.
But I should be concerned about the double regression.
Those turnovers are going to be coming.
Double regression. Could you see them not making the playoffs? Are we sure this team's going to make the playoffs?
Well, they're not going to win their division, so they're going to have to get one of those 3 wild card spots, and it depends a lot on how well the 49ers play, I think, for the rest of the way. And then, frankly, that whole division, the Cardinals and the 49ers and the Rams and the Seahawks.
The Packers.
Yeah, and the Packers getting healthy. So, like, it's hard. Given the rundown of the rest of the games that they have, there's a couple in there that feel like obvious wins. I'm not sure how difficult everyone else's schedule, though. I think that's the real question. But is it possible? It's definitely possible that this team that was, at one point, I think, the best team or I guess we always kind of thought the Lions, but they were one of the best teams in football at one point in the season. They are in a realistic situation where they could miss the playoffs.
But they still won. We're talking about them like they lost this game. They won this game. They
beat
got a
the
W.
Jags. They beat the Jags 12-7, William.
This is like when
they beat the Jags 12-7 William. The Jags with McCorkle.
Okay, are we not going to talk about a game where the Chiefs beat a team with Boudreaux Knicks?
You had the wrong place if you think that I'm going to bow down to the Chiefs just because they won 2 Super Bowls. Can we get to that topic?
Yes.
Because I am sick.
Let's go.
I am sick.
Let's go.
Okay.
Here we go.
So the Chiefs
teed me up, Bill.
The Chiefs,
well done.
The Chiefs won on a blocked field goal against Bo Nix and the Broncos. They are 9-0.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
They are undefeated.
I love it here.
Undefeated. Never lost. They haven't lost since Christmas last year.
Oh, God.
Are the Chiefs ever going to lose again?
Hell no.
No, not after today. Hey, I mean, obviously, God is a Chiefs fan. Like, it feels like there's nothing that can stop the Chiefs. And it's funny because the Chiefs have gotten, at least for me, like, the emergence of the Chiefs was so cool and Patrick Mahomes was so fun that I felt like the whole country was Chiefs fans. And at the beginning of this season, I was rooting for them. Like a three-peat, I would love to see that. That'd be so cool. Like them winning Super Bowl last year was so cool. I'm getting to the point now, and it's probably because I keep watching them win games that they're not supposed to win, where it's a little bit annoying, and I feel bad about that. But I'm watching these games, and today, normally it's like a miraculous field goal block for the team that everyone likes to win. Like I would normally like, that was cool, but I watched it and I can't control my reaction. My reaction is like, oh, here we go again. Here they go. They found another way to win a game when nothing historically about their stats suggests that they are a good team, and nothing about watching, well, not a good team. They're a good team. Nothing historically about their stats suggests that they should be 9-0. And when I watch the games, I'm like, yeah, this is a pretty good team, mediocre amongst the pack. And then I look at the standings like, no, they're by far the best team in football by their record. And then I look at the point differential and I say, no, you know what? This is an average team. And then they block a field goal and they undefeated and they're about to go down in history. They're going to go 17-0 and win the Super Bowl. And then people are going to say that they're better than the 07 Patriots. And I'm going to throw my TV out the window. Because that team that lost the Super Bowl but went undefeated, that was a great damn football team.
Just couldn't get past Eli Manning. Just couldn't get past Eli.
We need Eli to suit up. Bring Eli back to set everything right in the world and stop with this voodoo magic that's taking place.
Do they play?
What
Daniel
team are you
Jones?
putting Eli on? No, they played Danny. Second game of the year.
Danny Euros.
Oh, I saw that today. That same guy had like 3 different Danny Dime sides. It was the same dude. The Asian dude with cornrows had multiple Danny Dime sides. It was great.
To your point, Dominique, the Chiefs are 8th in the NFL with a plus 58 point differential. Last year, the fraudulent Eagles team that we all call it frauds, after 9 weeks, they had a plus 57 point differential.
Nobody was. I don't recall people calling the Eagles frauds last year. That was a very limited. That is a retrospective view of what people saw in the Eagles.
It's true. No one, because we were all saying the same thing that we are now saying about the Chiefs. The Chiefs.
Yeah, they're fraudulent. Yes. They're a fraudulent 8-1 team.
What does so? I don't.
Do you want to know the Patriots point differential in 07?
What was the Patriots point differential?
Plus 212
after
9 weeks.
They were beating everybody by 20 points.
22 points a game.
22. See, that's what I'm talking about, guys. So, like, I'm going to get framed as some sort of Chiefs hater.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is 9 games is a big enough sample size. If your point differential is 50, which was that compared to like a 6-7 win team, then you have to admit that you're a little bit like.
But you don't understand. Patrick Mahomes' will to win blocked that field goal.
I
Clutch Gene.
Let's say you could find out everything about this team except for their identities. Like all the names were redacted. Like the Chiefs' name was redacted. It was just, you find out only the facts about this team. Are we not talking about them like they're the 2022 Minnesota Vikings?
Yeah,
that's
frauds.
the team. I feel like we're having this conversation about where it's.
What was their point differential? Was it 50-something at this point?
I think it was negative.
Negative. That's even worse. So, yeah,
Negative.
we're not talking about them like that. It was a negative point differential. That's wild. So, yeah, and the thing is, we can't do that. I'm with you. I would love to be able to blind resume some of these teams, but we can't do that. And the tough thing about watching the Chiefs is, with the exception of this game, it feels like the way that they end all of these close games fits perfectly into the narrative that has been created around them, that they are a clutch team and they've been there before and they know what they're doing, and this is all by design. But this particular game, you can't, like, it's a block field goal. What are there, like 10 block field goals a season, if that?
No, they got the hack now. Just push those dudes down. Someone jumps over. It's easy to block field goals now, Dominique. You just
Yeah. So yeah, now I'm ready for a week where I'm gonna be the lone person yelling like, "But guys, they aren't that good," and people are like, "But they got this will to win. They know the tricks." I don't know.
I was waiting for like, I feel like at this point people just assume the Chiefs are going to get all the calls. So whenever there's anything that goes against them, people are upset. Like that the Bengals game, when the Bengals didn't get that call, I was like, oh, just Mahomes, just wanting to, not have Joe Burrow get those calls. They didn't have to face them in the postseason. Wants to just face Lamar. Here's the question I want to ask you, Dominique, because I am not a former player, but you are. There is a popular theory that the Chiefs are basically bored and are only giving their all and only doing what they need to do when it actually matters most. And this year on offense, heading into this game, their passing EPA per down. They are 22nd in the league on first down. They are 19th in the league on second down. And on third down, they are first, and second place is closer to 11th than to the Chiefs in first place. So they go from being, trying to think of a below average passing offense. They go from being like, I guess, the Jets on first and second down to the 07 Patriots on third down. And normally I would say, well, they can't keep that up. That's not sustainable. But it feels like, Dominique, that they don't really seem to care until you get to a point where they're down 10 points in the second half. Like, is there something to that idea that they need to be down or need to be in a situation where it actually matters to feel anything at this point?
I hate to ruin this illusion, but the difference between me and you, as me being a former player and you not being a former player, is probably similar to the difference between me and Patrick Mahomes, let's say. And so, like, when people ask me these type of "you used to be a former player" questions, I get it. And you're talking about, like, average starter guy, yeah. But when you're talking maybe greatest of all time, I don't know what it's like to be him. Like, I don't. I'm sorry. I know what it's like to be him as much as you do. So I would say that I agree with you, is that, like, this fits well into the narrative. Generally, I'd say that it's not possible. What I will say, though, is there is something to be said for when people say they're just kind of going through the motions. Even me, at times in the course of a season, when you're on a good team, you do go through the motions for some games to some degree where you can't get yourself amped up for every single game. I think that the Chiefs probably are obviously doing that because they're back-to-back Super Bowl champs, and all the games they play in feel like are high-stakes games. So these games probably feel like a little bit over preseason games to them. I could get that. So that to me feels possible.
What about the idea of a trap game? Because this was after a primetime game. This was like their first Sunday 1:00 game in like 2 years. They have the Bills next week. Do you think they felt like this was just sort of an anonymous game against a kind of mediocre quarterback and a team they should beat by 20 points?
I mean, I don't know that I believe in the trap game idea as much as it's like, I get that idea. And everyone is going to treat the Chiefs like they are their Super Bowl, particularly teams that are in their division and really hate them. So, yeah, there's going to be a mismatch of intensity, and that could play against them. But to your point, the question isn't about do they find themselves in these trap situations. I think at least the part that's shocking is that they can up their level of play in certain downs in certain situations. That does seem to be consistent. That's the one thing that cuts against all of us complaining about it is that they can up their level of play on third and longs and fourth quarters. Like we see that happen time and time again. So yeah.
The thing I was going to ask is, do we have any faith the Chiefs are going to level up? Any faith that they're going to be sort of the offense we know they have in the back of their heads that they've been in the past? You've given up. So it's not even, to me, the only reason I would think maybe that happens is because Isaiah Pacheco comes back at some point and he's a major upgrade on Kareem Hunt. That's my only hope for this offense.
Left tackle. Patrick Mahomes he stopped doing a drop back and started backpedaling because he didn't want to turn his back to the left tackle. Like that to me is a huge problem that will hinder this offense from being as explosive as it can be. And I think as much as we all, and I'm guilty of this also, fell in love with DeAndre Hopkins, is he's a very specific type receiver. And this might be a little in the weeds, but like the Broncos, we all know them to be a great man-to-man, tight man-to-man coverage team. Those teams are going to give the Chiefs problems. And DeAndre Hopkins is not going to create separation. He's going to catch some contested balls, but he's not going to create separation. And unless Xavier Worthy grows up real fast, then I don't think that this offense is going to get back to that like explosive, special Chiefs stuff that we're used to. Does that mean they can't win a Super Bowl? Of course not. I'm not stupid.
I figured I'd ask. No, I mean, they don't got to be the 2018 Chiefs for this to be true. I'm just asking, can they be the offense we saw the last 2 years? I mean, outside of the drops last year, which were a mess, even the offense we saw in the postseason last year was better than this version of the Chiefs offense. I mean, the Broncos are a pretty good defense, but like we saw what an actual great offense does to the Broncos last Sunday when Lamar and the Ravens blew them up. The Chiefs looked like they were overmatched on offense. They could not protect Mahomes for most of this game. They hit some plays, but a lot of it was Mahomes magic, and they had one or two blown coverages here and there, but like this was not a game where they were able to do anything close to what the Ravens did against the same defense.
Yeah, I don't see the offense getting back to that form. It's going to be a lot of Patrick Mahomes running. When you tight man coverage, your response to man coverage is going to have to be quarterback scrambles if no one can get open.
It was so painful watching him run today on his bum ankle.
It was bad.
The waddle was even waddlier.
I started watching The Penguin and it popped into my head a second.
You just started thinking of Colin Farrell doing that.
While Patrick was running, it's just a little bit faster. It looks like his knees don't like each other.
His knees are getting into a fist fight.
It does look like his knees are fighting each other as he runs.
He is so effective as a runner.
He is.
All right, next topic. We're going to talk about the Commanders who lost to the Steelers today. The Steelers offense got going. It's an interesting game where the Commanders jumped off sides on fourth down to not get a final possession to give Jaden Daniels a shot. They were sort of sloppy in the fourth quarter, but we have seen a Pittsburgh team that is a lot better than we thought. They put Russell Wilson in. We thought that was sort of not going to last, and he was completely cooked. He's been a lot better than we hoped. How frisky do you think this Steelers team is with Russ?
Not super frisky. I mean, I don't know what frisky is as a definition. I think they possibly could win a playoff game. I can't see them winning more than that. I think they'll probably get into the playoffs. The problem with the getting too high on the Steelers is what I'm not seeing is Russell Wilson picking teams apart. I'm seeing a lot of him kind of throwing up jump balls, and sometimes they catch him and they don't catch him. Like their offense today felt like George Pickens being superhuman.
Sick catch.
And then, multiple sick catches and runs after the catch, and their defense playing well. And I think that's what their team is. And there will be teams that will stop that. There'll be a week when George Pickens does some George Pickens-y things and the offense can't move. Like I'm not as high on this team as I think Russell might have people believe it could be. And he did a little dance.
His dance was so funny. It was so funny.
Did you hear Mike Tomlin's post-game quote?
No, what did he say?
When they asked him, were you really going to run a play on 4th and 1? He just gave him the, I don't know, I'm a degenerate. response. We'll never know, will we?
Mike Tomlin, I saw him playing to the camera again this week. He
blew a kiss.
He loves the camera. Like, he blew a kiss. What, he gave finger guns a couple weeks ago to the Sky Cam?
This man's the best. I love Mike Tomlin. I love Mike Tomlin. I don't want to play football. I want to play for Mike Tomlin. Here is the thing about Mike Tomlin magic, though. It doesn't work in the postseason. I don't know if you all noticed the last few years. Right. They make it to the postseason, they get stomped by 30 points whenever they get there. And to Dominique's point, I do think this team is sufficiently better, especially on defense. They are really, really good. Mm-hmm. And so I do believe they can win a game with their defense. But the thing about the Chiefs that especially with Pacheco in there, is that they can run the football. And if you can run the football, you don't got to be great throwing the football. And Mahomes obviously is great at times, but like, you don't have to be, Jared Goff in terms of how often you're throwing the football. You don't have to be throwing the ball 40, 50 times and winning games that way. And I don't trust the Steelers' run game. I don't think they're going to be as efficient running the football. That's going to put too much on Russ's shoulders. Someone like Mahomes can obviously shoulder that amount. Patrick Mahomes is better than Russell Wilson. Those are the takes I'm saving for you guys on YouTube.
Insight.
But this game, they averaged 3.3 yards per carry, and they lost a fumble. Jalen Warren lost a fumble on the 1 yard line. Mm-hmm. The running game actively held this team back in this game. And Arthur Smith, I don't know if you know about Arthur Smith, he is very happy to run the ball 40 times in a game. That is not something he is afraid to do in the slightest. And so
FedEx ground.
I think if FedEx ground, that's nice. I like that. Okay. You have to have a complete team. The Steelers they have great special teams, except for that weird fake. I like the fake punt today. Actually, I don't know why I'm being weird about it. It didn't work, but it was open. I don't blame him for the fake punt. They have very good defense. They can hit like 2 or 3 big plays a game on offense in the passing attack, but they have to run the football. And that is, I still think, a major weakness for them. And without that, that's going to hold them back in the postseason.
I've forgotten about that safety they got robbed from them when they were holding TJ Watt and they didn't call it.
Yeah.
The game would have been over a lot sooner. Sorry, Charlie.
Oh, I've just long said teams should run more fake punts. I genuinely believe this. Like, punters have to have so much time in practice. Can't they not work with the quarterback's coach like a tiny bit to be able to make that throw?
Yeah, quarterback's coach love having the opportunity to work with the punter.
Punters may have free time in practice. Quarterback coaches do not have free time in practice.
Quarterback coach is like, he's like a little minion for the offensive coordinator. Can't just work on his mechanics a little bit.
Listen, the backup needs to get reps. Nah, we got to get the punter 10 fake punt snaps here.
You can't hire Josh McCown just to teach your punter how to throw fake
Josh
punts.
McCown, you think he would take that? Josh McCown is like the leading head coach candidate.
Okay, Cade McNown then. A different, someone close.
Does he have good mechanics?
I don't know.
He can't teach him. He's too good at it.
You didn't go for Luke McCown as the alternate to Josh McCown?
No, I thought for some reason I thought of Cade McNown.
He would have.
UCLA, great. Banned from the Playboy Mansion.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh. I don't want to ask why. I don't want to ask why.
We're on YouTube. We can ask why.
Let me Google to make sure I didn't make this up.
Oh, man.
If we did, it'll never see the light of day. All right, last question before we get out of here. I want to do this. This is rapid fire. More disappointing season, Cowboys or the Jets?
Jets.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the Cowboys season the expectations weren't high outside for the Cowboys season. And they still have like some level of hope. I think Bill did a good job last week of pointing out how close they are to a rebuild because they have some of the pieces that are really important. The Jets nobody's hurt, so we can't like say the reason why they stink is because all these things are injured, and their quarterback is obviously at the end of the rope. It's not like Dak where there's like a little bit of a runway left. Like it seems like
Dak's got 5 years left. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a runway left.
Yeah.
And Aaron Rodgers has no runway left. So I think this season it was now or never. And they also have been trading away picks in order to bolster his roster, and they still get blown out by a team in Arizona that I've called a spoiler at best that I don't think is a real contender. So, yeah, this is the Jets are.
They could have put a running clock on that Jets-Cardinals game for the good of everyone. And by the way, Cade McNown was banned from the Playboy Mansion.
Okay. I still don't want to know
details.
I didn't read the article. Okay. The headline is there.
Thank you for supporting journalism, Charlie.
Yep.
The defense has been the problem with the Jets, right? Like they fired Robert Saleh thinking it would fix the offense, and instead it just broke the defense. And that is, to me, the fatal flaw with this Jets team. If the defense is not great, they have no hope. And the defense right now is no longer great. But Jets fans have been doing this to themselves for 2 years, right? Like they spent the last 2 years basically outside of 4 snaps in week 1 convincing themselves this was going to be the team, this was going to be the year, this was finally the guy. And idiots like me who spent most of the last 2 years telling them it wasn't the guy did not really seem to register with them. I think with Cowboys fans, like, yes, they have expectations. Yes, there's crazy Cowboys fans, but Cowboys fans have been so beaten down over the last 15 years and not enough has changed about the team around their core that I don't think a significant portion of Cowboys fans believed they were going to make a deep playoff run this year. And for the Jets fans, that was not the case. And they are unfortunately facing that reality. Whereas Cowboys fans, this is like, like a 30th percentile outcome for what they expected their season was going to be.
Agreed. The end. We're out. Thanks, Bill Barnwell. You're the man. Thanks for joining us. This has been the Domonique Foxworth Show presented by Allstate. Throw your hands up. Thanks to Bill Barnwell, Charlie Kravitz, all the great producers. I love you, Podville. We out.
This is the Domonique Foxworth Show.